Sup, nerds, I'm Wes.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
We're Neverboard Gaming, and we're bird watching today.
Well, I'm out.
Wingspan is a engine building game where we'll be collecting birds and putting them into these different landscapes and using different abilities to get more birds. Basically, you're going to be gaining food to feed the birds. You're going to be laying eggs to hatch more birds, and you're going to be drawing more bird cards that are the birds. Yeah,
so to draw the birds.
To draw the birds. And those are like the three main actions. There's also tons of tokens and stuff that you're going to be collecting, which are those resources. There's dice and a dice tower.
Birdhouse dice tower.
Yeah. It's just, there's so much stuff. On your turn, you're either going to be putting a new bird into play, gaining food, gaining the eggs, or drawing more cards. When you do one of the three last ones, if you're doing the gain food, lay eggs, or draw cards, after you do that, it will trigger any birds in that row, or in that in that row that also have abilities that trigger. So that's where the engine building really just starts to ramp up. It's like, okay, I'm going to collect food, and I also trigger this card, and this card, and this card. Okay, I'm done.
And with all that going on, at the heart of it, it really is a fairly simple game, because you only really have 4 choices. There's play a bird, gain food, lay eggs, draw bird cards. Pick one of those 4 things. That's what you're doing on your turn. And as the game progresses, there's ways, like Aaron said, you add cards that builds more things on it. But the fact, it's one of those games that is like with everything going on and the beautiful artwork and all this stuff. On your turn, it really does suck you back down to which one of these 4 things do you want to do. And then like the engine of the birds building out, it's not like a combo engine building game necessarily. We're like, okay, well, this triggers this. And now that I have this, I can do this. And then this lets that happen. It's more of, on this line, these things all happen. And like maybe that is the thing that you want to trigger. But really, it's, okay, I'm going to pick lay eggs. And then because I picked lay eggs, these birds trigger. And that stuff kind of happens passively in the background. But at the heart of it, it really is a very, like,
intro-y.
Somewhat intro, because there can be a little bit of, like, the strategy, I think, can almost get a little over intro-y. But it is a very, like, simplistic in what you actually get to choose.
So when this game was first announced, Jamie said, like, in his announcement, he kind of described it as a mix of Terraforming Mars and Gizmos. Now, Gizmos, I can definitely see. It's very engine buildy, and, you know, as I'm focusing more on this area gets better. And then there's also other things that will trigger as well that might affect the other areas. Definitely, like Wes said, not as combo-y as Gizmos. But when it comes to the Terraforming Mars comparison, a lot of people were saying originally, like, Terraforming Mars, where do you even get that? There are a couple places where I can see what he's talking about. First of all, you know, in the opening hand of cards, when you get dealt out cards, you have to pay to keep them. That's a minor thing, but I was definitely like, oh, that's Terraforming Mars, where, like, you're looking at your whole hand, and you're like, oh, I want to keep all of these, but if I keep all of them, then I have no money to do other stuff. But also with the level of complexity in all of the comboing, the nature of the comboing. Because again, Gizmos would be very simple of just, well, I'm going to pick a black up from the display thing here. And that says whenever I get a black, I get one from the top here. And then it also says that when I pick this, I get to go to that. So it's very easy for that snowball to build up. And here, every bird you play needs resources, and kind of a lot of, not like they all need a lot, but there's a lot of varied resources. So you really have to be specific about the birds you're going to choose to play. Furthermore, as you play those birds further out, you need eggs. So you can't just immediately bum rush to building up one layer, you know, one row all the way up so you get the better version. And furthermore, as you're building those up, it's a small increment, and again, not a huge snowball. So that does remind me a lot of Terraforming Mars, like specifically with like the microbe cards that didn't really affect, you know, where you were placing on the map, and they just kind of triggered all off of each other. You really had to think about which one you're going to activate when, because you really almost like couldn't activate all of them. And, you know, well, when I move this, you can't say tap, but when I tap this one, you add a microbe to it, which will mean that it'll affect the way that I tap this one. So it's a lot more crunchy in that way. And that's where I think he gets the Terraforming Mars comparison from.
I think that the component quality is one of the most impressive things about this game. Like, it feels like a game that went to Kickstarter and just like made $1 million and unlocked tons of stretch goals, and he added new stretch goals and then blew through those. But it's not. Stonemeyer Games is such a great guy. He just did it. Like, from the get-go, he knew what he wanted this game to be and made it happen. Like, these eggs are beautiful. You know, every person has these player boards that, like, they look like little field journals when you open them up, but everything lays out here. It comes with this super sweet bird feeder dice tower. The dice are nice wooden die. There's game trays insert.
There is a little chart here to tell you how to put everything back into the box after you open it up.
Even the rule book is like linen finished. Like, everything about this game that you touch just screams quality.
I wish there was more comboing. I guess that's just coming from playing a lot of gizmos, though. Like, when I would place a card down, I'm like, okay, so that's it. Like, you're like, I'm gonna play a bird. He's in play now.
I think that would have been like a lot more fun. Is if whenever you play a card, the rest of that row activated or something.
But again, I think that's coming from you guys playing Gizmos not Terraforming Mars.
That's fair.
Terraforming Mars was specifically like, I'm going to take these actions just to set myself up to do this big action.
Yeah, no, it's definitely more forward thinking the way you're playing this game. You're not just like flush with resources. I can do anything. Mm-hmm. It's more like methodical in the way you have to play this game. I understand that. And that's why they use birds. It's like, it's a very like, you know, studious thing to study birds. You're just like, oh, yes. Okay, that bird wants this. I'm going to go get a worm for that bird so I can get him onto this. It's very like, being like a wacky thing like Gizmos where it's just like wacky, crazy stuff. That's why like it makes sense.
Yeah, the methodicalness is fitting for the theme.
Yeah.
And I think that also the thing that Gizmos would have that this, like, the engine building takes a minute for it to take off. Like, there's only like 4 like rounds. Each round you get multiple turns, but it's not really until like the end of round 2, maybe round 3, where you really have like engine stuff going. Like, you'll have some cards out there that when you trigger this, one other thing happens, but you don't get that like explosion of all these things happening in your turn until kind of the end of the game, which again, it's very fitting with the theme that it's peaceful and serene and you just take your time and relax. But that's something that I kind of wanted a little bit more of, was that engine to come into play faster and then to get to have more time. Like, I feel like you really have to take your time like crafting your engine, because there's a lot of cards that like you want to have played first and are like, this card's gonna be really good if it's at the end of my row.
Yeah. Just because you drew a card doesn't mean you should play it.
Yeah. And because it takes that much time and effort to build it, I kind of wanted a little bit more time with it.
Now you're talking about how great the component quality is, and I will agree with you. And this game tray thing, really nice, really cool. Not 100% necessary, but it's an additional thing that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy, and they're going to use it, and they're going to think it's really pretty. It increases the table presence and all that. However, for me, functionality-wise, I don't really like it because it doesn't seem to be, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's really going to work with sleeved cards.
Yeah, it's packed to the brim.
It is pretty packed to the brim.
It does fit the sleeve cards, I've heard. But they you can't really close the lid on it. And it honestly, even functionally in the game, it was almost kind of finicky to kind of reach in here to get your cards, other than just having a deck of them.
Yeah. I mean, okay, at least this reminds you that you're supposed to have 3 laid out there. And this bird here is pretty, but I liked the game trays in Between Two Castles a lot better. I thought that was especially because there was one section for cards, but it was these things that you might never even draw those cards. So it's really not that big a deal. And you could probably, you might not even sleeve them. But this is a card game. Mm-hmm. So much of the game is with these cards. So you're going to shuffle the crap out of these things. So you really want to sleeve them. I really want to sleeve it. Just before you start the game, every single game, you have a huge deck. You go, yeah, if you're going to play this game a lot, you're going to want to shuffle it, in which case kind of renders this obsolete. Which to me, I don't think you're missing all that much if you get rid of that part.
Yeah, because it really has nothing to do with gameplay. It's mostly just the storage. It's not like a quick start insert or anything. So if you like it, if you don't sleeve your cards, it's great. It's there for you. If not, I don't feel like, oh, I'm paying so much extra for this. It's kind of a freebie, so
take it or leave it. I could leave it though.
So at the end of the game, you're collecting victory points for so many different things. There's each round, there's a certain objective that we're doing that can earn you points if you have like the most of that thing in that round. So it's like the most eggs in the water or the most of this nest type. But then there's also, you get victory points for every egg you have on your board, every resource that a bird has stored. It's called caching on their card. Or my favorite is there's like the hawks and stuff that they catch other birds and eat them. So you just flip the top card off the deck, and if it's a small enough card, this one says it needs to be under 100 centimeters, and this one is 53 centimeters. He eats them. It just goes underneath. That's an extra victory point at the end. So like it's kind of like a point salad, where there's just like a lot of different ways to get points. And then also every bird is worth points, and like the higher point birds can't hold as many eggs, and the lower point ones seem to be able to hold more. Like it's kind of cool. Like I think they put a lot of variety in the way that every card has its multiple purposes.
I do, but I don't think it's a point salad in that, like, no matter what you do, there's points everywhere. I feel like it's a very strategic point salad. Like almost everything you do gets you points, but there's definitely like an order in it, like what you want to do to maximize those points. And again, because like there's round goals and end of game personal goals and all that. So like, okay, well, getting eggs gets me points, but where I put them may affect these. But you know, what birds I put where, okay, this bird is worth 8 points, this bird's worth 6 points, but this bird holds more eggs, so I want to put it here instead of the 8-point bird, because that way like I can do this. So yes, there's points everywhere, but it's still like a very, like, you have to sit there and think exactly how you want to have those points scored.
So we were just talking a lot about a lot of the cool things with this game. There are a lot of great things with this game, but as I always say, no game is perfect, so here are a couple of negatives. One, I definitely agree with them that I wanted it to be a little bit more combo-y than it is, and maybe that's just because I played Gizmos a bunch. This game's a lot tighter and more strict, I'll say, than, you know, what I was expecting coming in, which is fine. It's not it doesn't really fault the game. It's just more personally, I would have preferred it to be a little bit more loosey-goosey. There are a decent amount of times when you feel like the luck of the draw is kind of hindering you. I can't draw any green cards, or I can't draw any birds with this nest on them, and that's what I need. So that can kind of, there's a little bit more luck in there that I would have liked. Mostly, I want to say this, is that I did really enjoy this game. Definitely want to play it again. Excited to play it again. Definitely want to have it in my collection. However, I do really think this game has kind of been overhyped. Now, maybe that's just for us, because we're on social media a lot. We meet with a lot of people who play games, but people are kind of losing their pants over this game. Like, one of my friends says, oh, game of the year, contender for game of the year, and I know the year just started, but seriously, so good. I'm going to play it over and over and over again. And I'm like, I mean, it's good. Like, and that's what...
It definitely has a lot of replay value to it.
Right. Like, the thing is, it's like, by saying I don't think it's the best game I've ever played in my life doesn't mean I don't like it. But a lot of my friends were saying that about Terraforming Mars too. Like, oh, top 3 games of all time. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, pump the brakes. I'm not saying it's crap because it's not top 3 games. But like, I mean, come on.
And I do think that, like, apparently there is a huge niche in the board gaming hobby that loves bird watching, because like there's a Wingspan Facebook group that like blew up almost more than any board game like specific Facebook group that I've seen, about how amazing it is and all these different birds and fighting like little nitpicky misprints, and like that's great. I'm really, really happy that that group has a game that's like their flagship game. Like, this game is me. But bird watching did not do it for me thematically. Like, it was fun. I felt like the thematics like were there. It's a beautiful game. But I've never been like, what? A bird watching game?
It's just not our hobby.
Yeah.
It's not our thing. And nor have I ever considered it as a potential hobby.
But again, if you're out there and you love bird watching and you're like, what are you guys talking about? Bird watching is the best. I'm so happy that you have this game now, because, or if you don't, buy it in the link. But like, again, I also agree that I felt like people lost their mind over it a little bit. And I was like, we got to the end, I'm like, did I miss something? Like, it was great. It was a solid game. It's a Stonemeyer game. You know it's going to be good.
Do you think that maybe because we've heard so many, everybody like, oh, it's going to melt your eyes out. Like, we played it and we were like, oh. Like, it's a good game, but because everybody hyped it up so much, like, we were unimpressed.
I don't think that.
You don't
Because,
think that?
like, we played Euphoria really late in the game. And I heard that game was really hyped
Right,
up. And it
okay.
was fantastic.
And I think
like,
Scythe lives up to the hype, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yes,
but again, I don't think that's it. Like, and maybe a little bit, but not to the extent that I saw it hyped.
I would say that just because there's nothing like groundbreaking here. Like there's a lot of really cool mechanics. And
There are wooden eggs.
Are these wood?
No, they're plastic. There's a seam line on them. They're actual eggs?
They're Cadbury eggs. But yeah, I didn't see anything that like shook me to like, whoa, like how come nobody has ever put that in a game before? What? Like, it's all very good things and all like just tightly woven mechanics that work well together. But
it's well designed.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. Very enjoyable. Again, I'm excited to play it again.
Yeah.
I really want to play it again. You know, And
I want to learn all this information on the bottom of all these cards.
I don't.
Golden
I don't
eagles
that.
mostly eat rabbit-sized prey.
So I think what we're trying to get at is we definitely enjoyed this game. We recommend that you play it. We just were almost like curious as to like where the hype came in. Like, did we miss something? Let us know in the comment section down below.
I hope that our argument about the hype around this game doesn't undersell it at all. We do highly recommend that you click the link in the description box down below and get yourself a copy. It really is a solid game.
You should also subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Either way.
Look at that pecker! If you're Austin Powers.